Welcome to my first Docker lesson, guys. From the get-go, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Dockerfile. And the reason I do this is because there's a lot of Docker intro videos out there, and I found one that can probably explain Docker in an introduction better than I can. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the description. It's Ivan's video, and he goes in a very simplistic manner of how Docker works and what's Docker main purpose is. So I would highly advise you guys go ahead and watch that video before continuing on this one. But all the things that he will be going through with the CLI and for Docker, I'll be going through as well throughout the entire course. So when I use a CLI, I'll go ahead and explain it. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Dockerfile first, because when you work with Docker in a work environment and you're creating a brand new Docker environment or Docker container, you're probably going to start with the Dockerfile first. So that's where I'm going to start. My main objective here is to create two Docker containers, and that is to create one for Salt Master and one for Salt Minion. If you know my other course, which is Learning Salt Stack, I teach basically various things, modules, and scenarios of Salt. I'm going to go ahead and replicate that sort of here a little bit. I got rid of my infrastructure on AWS, and I'm trying to basically combine the two applications and teaching them in sort of one video. So this is going to be one of two videos. My next video is going to be probably for Salt Stack, but this one's going to be for Docker specifically. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and create a folder for Salt Master and one for Salt Minion. And the reason being why is if I ever, when I create a Docker file, I have to name the file, the config file to make the Docker container Dockerfile. If I want to post it into the Docker Hub, it has to be named Dockerfile, all one word with a capital D. And that is their requirement. You can name it whatever you want, but if you ever want to post it under Docker Hub, which is their Docker container repository, Google that if you don't know what it is. It's basically it's kind of like Yum, where you Yum install package. It's Docker pull container, whatever container that's publicly out there by so and so company. So that's why I'm going to be splitting them up, is because you can't have two files with the same name. So I'm going to have a Docker file for Salt Master, a Docker file for Salt Minion. So I'm going to have two directories in this case. All right, so let's start with the master. And I'm going to go ahead and change my syntax to Dockerfile. Now, I'm going to use Ubuntu, and it's not related to Docker. Why I'm using Ubuntu is basically a specific package for SaltStack doesn't work with the latest CentOS, so I'm going to be using Ubuntu. And so where I state from Ubuntu latest, this is going to pull up the public Ubuntu latest container and start from there. So if you look onto, for example, say, if you go into docker.com Ubuntu, actually not this, sorry, not docker.com, hub.docker.com/Ubuntu. And the latest, well, one with the latest tag is probably going to be 17.10. And yeah, that's the latest one. So it's going to be pulling 17.10, and that's where I'm going to start off with. So I can say Ubuntu, specific version. So let's say Ubuntu 16.04. So instead of saying latest, I could just say 16.04 if I wanted to. These are the tags that I could be following. But I'm going to go ahead with latest. Whatever latest pulls, I'll go with that one, which is going to be actually this one. Sorry, I was wrong. It's going to be pulling 16.04. So it looks like 18.04 and 19.04 is in devel and rolling. I'm not sure exactly why they're not latest, but 16.04 is fine with me. I'll go with 16.04. So latest still. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and specify it, because you don't want your containers to be all of a sudden a different version, and even though it's a minor version, there could be some bugs, or there could be something new that's changed on a specific minor version that you may not catch. So specify the version number if you can. Don't go with the latest all the time. All right, with that said, the maintainer is me. I'm the maintainer. This is basically a description of who maintains this Docker container. A lot of the times you can put email here, and I do for work. When I use Docker for work, I usually do put my email in there, so that way it's easier to reach me. But for this case, it's just going to be my name. All right, so the first thing I want to do is run apt-get update. Every time I build this container, I want to make sure that or every time I run this container, every time I build this container, I want to make sure that the repositories are up to date. So, and I'll comment that out. Update repositories and run apt-get -y update. This -y for update is not important, but for anything else like install and remove, it's going to be important because just like in Salt or Chef or Ansible and so on, if you don't add the automatic yes, it's going to hang there and wait for your input. So update the repositories and then install salt master and I notify tools. The I notify tools I needed for a specific package within Salt, so it's not really important. I'm just trying to show you exactly what it does. So run apt-get -y install salt master is the package name, and I notify tools is the other package name that I want. Okay, so the run is basically run shell commands. There are a couple of forms of shell commands you can run with. You can use. So run is one of them. The CMD is another one, and entry point is the last one. So the difference is that run, you can have many runs in one Docker file. So you can have like 10 runs, you can have one run, doesn't matter, up to you. CMD can only be done once. So basically when you launch your container, it's gonna run that CMD. So if I say CMD salt master, like so, then when I run the container, the only thing it's going to run is salt master. That's it. Nothing else. So I can't put anything else after this file. All of this is void. Run. This echo hello will not work because it will stop at the CMD. That's pretty much it. So, oops, that's my Amazon echo going off there. Sorry about that. Anyways, so I will also post a link with the Dockerfile description documentation, but as for the discussion right now, I'm just letting you know you can have multiple runs, as many as you want to get where you want, but at the end you have to have one process running to keep the container running. Meaning, let's say you're running salt master, right? If you run salt master in foreground mode, then the process is always running. As long as that process is always active and running, the container will continue to run. If you do like a CMD echo hello world, it's gonna run hello world and then the container's gonna die. Sorry about that again. It's gonna run hello world and then the container is gonna die. That's pretty much it. And that's it. So we don't want to do that. We want the container to continuously run. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna run salt master in foreground mode. So the process is always running and salt master is always receiving and sending requests. So the container stays alive infinitely. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and run salt master. Actually, before any of that, I need to make sure that I copy over the salt master config, and I also map over the base salt state environment from my host machine to the Docker file to the Docker container. When I say map over the salt state environment, don't worry about what the salt state environment is. I'm just mapping over a folder I have on my host machine into the container, meaning just mapping over, not copying. There's a difference. I'm also going to copy a configuration over, but that's a direct copy. When I map it over, from my host machine to my container, I can make changes in my host machine, and it would carry over into the container without having to restart it. That's the idea of the map. And I'm not going to do that here. You can't do that in the Docker file. You can add a directory from your host to the container, but you can't map it over so it can be dynamically changed on both occasions. So you can only do that through the CLI, and I'll show you that when I get there. But first, let me go ahead and make a configuration file for the salt master. So let's say there's a new file here, and this is going to be called roots, and it's going to be YAML. So file roots, and then this is base slash srv slash salt slash base. And pillar roots base srv salt base pillars. And that's gonna be it. So roots.conf, because that's what saltmaster requires. So, oh, it didn't name it correctly. There we go, roots.conf. And then here, I'm going to copy roots saltmaster configs. So I'm going to copy roots.conf to /srv /salt /master.d /roots.conf. All right, so that's one thing I need to copy over. I don't think I need any other configurations. We'll find out in a second. So now that I've got that, I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and finally run saltmaster. So cmd, and I'll explain the difference between this format and just running it in plain text in a second. So salt master. So this, and there's a better description of this actually, I know. cmd versus run docker. There is this website, he explains it better. Here it is. So shell form versus exec form. Yep, that's exactly what it was. So this is an exec form. It's also like in Python, if you're used to Python arrays, it's very similar. So you would have, if I were to run flags, I'd have to put a comma, then -d or whatever flag I put here and so on, right? This is exec form. And this is shell form. Now the difference is that exec form is really preferred for the final command that you want to run, whether it's from command or entry point. Shell form is, you know, it's something that you're going to repeat like a few times, like in run. You can use either on any of them. It doesn't matter. It's just preferred. So it's more of a practice, and it's a good practice to get into. I would prefer having CMD be in exec form, obviously, because it's in different color. You can prevent from making mistakes. Up to you guys. Like I like it like this better. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. This hasn't been rehearsed. I haven't rehearsed this whatsoever, so this is gonna be brand new. We will see what we run into, and if we run into problems, then great. We get to diagnose it from there. So I'm gonna name this Dockerfile, and no extension, please. Rename it so there's no extension. All right. So Dockerfile. And now let's go to my root. Oops, I already had a container running, so. Okay, so I had a container running because I wanted to look at the salt config, but I didn't bother with it that much. So Docker PS shows the current running containers you have. Docker PS-A shows all of the running containers you have had, meaning even like the history of containers you have had. And I had two. So I had Assault Master. I tried it with Supervisor. It didn't quite work so well. And then I had it with Ubuntu Latest. It worked a little better, so I went with that one. But I need to delete my current image or any image I might have. I need to delete these containers. So let me see if I have a Salt Master image. I do. I have this one, which I believe is based on that supervisor one, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. So to delete this image, I also need to delete any associating containers. So if I try to delete this image by itself, it'll complain. So docker rm, and then you can say saltmaster : 1.0, or you can give the image ID. Sorry, not rm, that's rmi. Docker rmi saltmaster 1.0. Now, RMI, remove image. Saltmaster is the name or the repository of the image, and the tag is 1.0. So, and it says here, unable to remove reference Saltmaster 1.0 must force container, container this ID is using it as reference this image. So the image ID ends in D70, which is that Saltmaster 1.0. But the container is in 307. The container ID is this. So this container is using it, therefore you must kill this container before removing this image. Or you can force it somehow if you use the force flag. I'm not going to use a force flag. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this. So docker rm, that container ID, and then docker rmi saltmaster 1.0, and then it's gone. And that's it. So now if I do docker images, and it shows me all the images I have 2 CentOS and 1 Ubuntu Latest. So let me see what other container I have. I have this other one. So docker rm, I'll get rid of that container first, and then docker rmi Ubuntu, and then latest tag, and then that one's gone. And I'll get rid of CentOS now. Let me see how many images I have. I have 1 image. Now this one doesn't have a tag, so I don't know if I can get rid of it with just the name. It's not going to let me get rid of just the name. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the image ID. And there you go. Now it's gone. So Docker images, fresh, clean. Docker PS, I have no containers, all clean. Sweet. So now if I go to my Docker saltmaster, I've got my Dockerfile here, so I can do docker build. It's going to build a container. -t is to name and tag the container. So I'm going to name this, again, Saltmaster 1.0, and the Dockerfile is in my present working directory, which is dot or pwd if you want to use a variable pwd. So I could run into a problem, and I could not run into a problem. So if you understand Docker, every little step Docker does for all of these little runs here, it's going to use a different container, and then it's going to consolidate all those containers into one. So if I have a problem with, for example, this copy method, I'm not going to be redoing apt-get update and apt-get install and then going back to the copy. I can just start directly back from this copy, and then that's it. So that's the benefit of Docker, is that it uses many containers and then it brings it into one, sort of. You get this final container that's based on the previous containers. So it's very abstract that way. You can basically, restart where you left off. It's copying the roots.conf into salt. There's the srv salt master. Nah, That's not going to work because I don't need it here. I need it in etc salt. Okay. So Docker RMI salt master 1.0. And let's rebuild that one again. Again, sorry about that. Did not catch it there. All right, so now that I've got my Dockerfile, my Docker container built, and if I look at Docker images, here it is. Now I have two images. This one is Ubuntu 16.04, and this one is the Docker container, the salt master. You may be wondering, I didn't particularly tell it to install this one, but I did actually. If you look at my Dockerfile here, it says from Ubuntu 16.04. So it's going to pull that image regardless. So let's go ahead and see if I can run this now. So I'm going to run docker run, and I'm going to ask for a and -i is interactive mode, and then -t is going to provide me with a TTY or a shell. And I want to run saltmaster 1.0. And I'll run bin bash now. So now I'm in the container. I can do whatever I want. First thing I want to do is I want to check if that file's there. So cd etc /salt/master.d, and it's here. Great. Now the salt master won't run properly because I don't have these files mapped over. I forgot to use the add command and map them over from locally. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I need to make these directories and then map them over. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So let me get out of that container, and I can go ahead and delete this container because I don't need it anymore. It's not particularly a good idea to always keep deleting containers because sometimes you might need them, and you can somewhat go back to them depending if they're still running or what sort of logging they might have. But I do it just to keep my memory clean. So anyways, next thing I want to do is, before I run the salt master, is make salt states directory. So run mkdir /et/srv/salt/ what did I say it was? Base. And make the pillar one as well. mkdir /srv salt base pillar. Actually, I should just do that in one go. mkdir-p. Is it pillar or pillars that I said? Pillars. Okay, pillars is fine. All right. Make that. And then that'll make base and pillars because of that p flag. And we should be good for that. However, I need to map over my pillars and my base into the file. So, but when I do that, I need to do that through the shell. So let's make sure this part works now. So docker RMI. Do it again anyways, and build it. Once I'm done building it, I'm gonna make sure the directories are there. Then I'll just kill this container, and then I'll just map over the files through the CLI, and you can only do it through the CLI. And once I map over my salt state files, we'll see if my map has worked. Okay, so now the container's done building. So docker run bin bash cd/srv/ let's see if it's here. So salt, oh sweet, and base and pillar should be here too. Sweet. All right, pillars are also here. Awesome. So now that container is not running, it's dead, it's exited because I killed bash. Now I need to go ahead and run it with a map. So docker run it. Let's do -v documents. Oops. Now V is what maps over your volume into the container. So I want to map over my documents. I think it's in the Udemy salt states, salt stack, salt states, and then base into /v salt. What did I make? The directory? The directory I made was base. So /v salt base. Base. I need to map over 2 directories though, not just one. Let's see if there's a way to map over multiple directories. Docker map multiple volumes. Yeah, there you go. I believe there is a way. I've never done it before, so let's find out. Oh, you can add more V. All right, sweet. So that's one, and then I need to do -v documents, Udemy, salt stack, salt states, base pillar. No, not test pillar. Base pillars. In which case, I may want to keep them separate. Let's keep it the same for now. It doesn't matter. Map this over to /srv salt base pillars. All right, let's see if that works. /srv salt. Yay, all my stuff is there now. So before where it was empty, and now I've got my grains, alg stack, all of my stuff. And I've also got the pillars directory here, which contains my pillars. Which I have no pillars actually, to be honest, because I put everything locally under test pillar, so yeah. Everything was in test pillar, so I don't need to do anything there. All right, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Now I need to make sure that salt master runs. So if I do, I'll kill that container. If I take out the IT and bin bash, and I'll just say it's salt master 1.0. Now, this is going to run the container not in daemon mode, meaning salt master will run in foreground and you'll see everything here, and then that's it. So these are all output from the container. If I add the -d flag, it will run it in container mode, in daemon mode. So all these warnings that I'm seeing is because it's not in daemon mode. So if I add, let's go ahead and add -d. And then that's it. See, now I've got a continuous, because this process is going to continuously run and show these errors for whatever reason. I don't exactly know why yet. It's going to go ahead and go from there. So it's going to continuously run because salt master, the process salt master, will always continuously run. So that's a brief overview of the Docker command line, as well as a brief overview of the Dockerfile. In the next video, I'm going to be doing the same thing with the salt minion. So it's going to be a very short video because it's a lot of repeat of this one. And I hope to see you guys then. I'm going to go ahead and I'll try and find something new to include in that one, but it may just be a short video. So I'll see you guys then. Bye.